Good afternoon. Welcome to the July 20th informational meeting. First item on the agenda is a City Council staff report by Deborah Owen.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Sioux Falls City Council. Just a brief update on tonight's 7 o'clock meeting here at the Carnegie. The petitions under number 6 on the agenda is a deferred action before the council concerning a conditional use permit. Council was sent a letter late last week regarding the request to defer that, and so, of course, that is before you now. I think you've been given a copy, and those notes are on your red notes on your desk today. And then also item 14, which concerns a special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine license for the Sioux Empire Arts Council. That will be withdrawn tonight, as the event has been canceled. So the notes I have for you regarding your agenda. Thank you.
Next item is Mayor Munson's report. Is there anybody here from the mayor's office who wishes to speak? Seeing none. Next item is the audit committee. No report, I guess. Next item is fiscal committee.
There's no report. We will have a meeting the first Monday in August.
Land use committee. Sure. Whenever.
No report.
Public service committee.
At our last meeting, taxi deregulation was discussed. On that point, we're tabling the issue until we speak further with the taxi companies to find out exactly what they would like to do as far as deregulation and changing some of the ordinances if possible. Affordable housing and council security was tabled due to we did not have the personnel to speak to at that point in attendance. And last, a review of dance hall and events ordinances. We're working with the city attorney's office on that at this time. And that would be it.
Okay. Thanks, Kenny. Next item is council open discussion, and I would just like to start off the part of the confusion about the reports is we just recently reassigned all of them, and we'll consider those, the email that went out, those will be the new assignments as of after the meeting today. Any other open council discussion? Councilor Knudsen?
I'd just like to mention that last week, I don't even remember exactly what day it was, I went to the Leading Green meeting with different people throughout the city that are working on trying to just improve our environmental efforts, and I picked up a handful of new brochures that the city is using, and I'll share those with our staff. And then I'd also like to just do a short commercial for Sioux Falls' first Bio Blitz and Ecology Day on August 8th. That's part of the Leading Green project from 10 to 2, and of course it's free. And it's at the Perry Nature Center, which is across the highway from the Arrowhead Park. And anyway, again, probably everyone knows what the Bio Blitz is, but I'll help you if you don't. It's an educational program and a scientific survey all combined into one day, and the objective is for scientists to count all the species of plants and animals they can find in a given area in a fixed amount of time. Kind of reminds me of a scavenger hunt in a way. And the public can ask questions of the scientists as they collect and identify a variety of species. But there'll be all sorts of things going on. There'll be some hour-long guided birding hikes and a presentation about the history of East Sioux Falls by our talented Kevin Gantz at the museum, Siouxland Heritage Museum. And the Zoomobile will be present, and the outdoor campus will be there, and there will be lunch items available for purchase from our own Buffalo Berries, which is a restaurant downtown. And anyway, so I just wanted to start promoting that Leading Green Bio Blitz and Ecology Day on August 8th.
Any other? Councilor Staggers?
Yes, I just received a phone call from a constituent that I thought they had a pretty good idea, and that's in regard to licensing of dogs. And this individual was saying maybe the city should start promoting microchipping dogs and maybe getting away from the ordinance that we have now to encourage people to microchip their dogs. So it's possible in the near future that this individual will be speaking to us about this city council meeting. So, but just giving you a heads up there.
Okay. Any other items for open discussion? I had one question. Deborah, when you were talking about the deferral on the family daycare today, is that new information that we had in the leadership meeting, do you know, or?
That was brought over by planning after the leadership meeting, and so I think David Loveland actually had emailed, we forwarded that on to you from planning department, and I don't know that there's not a recommendation that the planning department is requesting that. That is a request from the attorney in the case.
The reason I'm bringing that up is because that item, the way in the leadership meeting we had discussed with the city attorney's office, and there are really two issues here. One is a covenants issue for the daycare in that home, in that neighborhood that has specific covenants. And really the question for the city is a zoning issue and whether or not the daycare is appropriate for that zoning. And it was my understanding basically that, you know, we should consider, you know, the city issues and let the pending lawsuit take its own course, but that's not our determination whether or not it meets their covenants or not. Ours is strictly a zoning. And Gail, is there more information? Do you know that? I'm confused at what this update is about.
Gail Eastland, City Attorney's Office. It's my understanding that the deferral was requested because there has been a lawsuit filed in civil court over the enforcement of the covenants. And that's what we discussed, I guess, last Thursday at the agenda review meeting. And that the people that are opposing the daycare have retained legal counsel and filed a summons and complaint to let circuit court decide whether a daycare violates the covenants in that neighborhood. And I guess the petitioners just want to see the court case concluded before the council votes on the zoning matter. But as Councilor Costello stated, they're two different things. I mean, the council has the zoning matter before it and looks at the various factors for a conditional use permit. The council does not have the authority or the jurisdiction to decide whether the covenants are being violated by the daycare. That's the court's prerogative. That's the court's jurisdiction. And the agreement, the declaration of restrictions and covenants to run to the land that was put in place that sets forth the covenants indeed provides for enforcement to be at law or in equity, which means you go to court over it. So we've got the zoning matter before the council, and then there's the separate court case. I don't know if that helps.
Is the city attorney's office recommending to us that we make our determination based on the zoning and proceed, or are you recommending that we defer, or what is your recommendation?
Well, I guess I don't have a hard and fast recommendation. I mean, the council can defer. I mean, you pretty much always have that option, but the reality is you'll not be sure when that court case would be concluded. And it could drag out, or it could be decided quickly, it could take a while. And then the zoning matter is sort of languishing there. But I guess the fact of the matter is that the daycare applicant has to get the council's approval, and now that there's been an action filed in court, the court has to okay it too for the daycare to actually be allowed.
Councilor Bennigan?
Gail, do you know if the applicant's coming tonight? I kind of got the impression that the letter was filed and they were copied with it and they were going to have legal representation, but maybe I misread that.
Well, I spoke with Mike Cooper this morning, and I believe he indicated both parties were told to be here.
Okay.
The applicant and the opponents. Whether the applicants retain legal counsel, I'm not sure.
Okay.
In the, I think in the leadership, or in the director's briefing, it was indicated that the applicant is opposed to the deferral. Councilor Jameson?
Yeah, I would say if the applicant is here tonight, we should just proceed and deal with it.
Any other comments?
I concur with what Councilor Jamison said.
Thanks, Gail.
Okay.
Okay, any other open discussion? If not, we'll proceed into the presentations, which is a presentation of the Whittier Neighborhood Summary Report. Russ Sorensen is going to kick it off.
Good afternoon, members of the City Council. It's with great pleasure and honor that I have along with me this afternoon my friends and Whittier Resident Association members Gigi Ryder and Jackie Swiden that are here this afternoon, and Gigi and I will present the information to you relative to the Whittier Neighborhood Executive Evolution Summary, the 2009 update. You should have copies of that information in front of you, and I'm going to put it in the context of my Whittier neighborhood. And in my Whittier neighborhood, Whittier was established during the 1870s as one of the city's oldest core neighborhoods. If you recall, we have 15 core neighborhoods adjacent to downtown, and Whittier ranks right up there with one of the older neighborhoods since the 1870s. We have a map that's provided for you, and in my Whittier neighborhood, we have distinctive boundaries and landmarks. And there are 51 subdivisions totaling 572 acres. There's various landmarks totaling 4 city parks, 4 schools, and 8 places of worship in this particular neighborhood. There are 155 businesses as well that reside along 10th Street and Weber Avenue and North Cliff Avenue as well. In terms of demographics from the 2000 census, in my Whittier neighborhood, there are about 5,100 persons that reside in this neighborhood, and about 60% of those are between the ages of 19 and 62 years old. 10% of the population is over 63 and are senior citizens. We have 16% cultural diversity, and 57% of the property owners own their own homes in the Whittier neighborhood versus 61% in the city of Sioux Falls. However, the core neighborhood also has one of the highest numbers of foreclosures. They had 21 home foreclosures in 2008, and currently they have 8 in 2009. And that's disturbing for myself as well as the Whittier neighborhood, and we want to visit with you a little bit more about that in our strategic plan. My Whittier neighborhood, we've had conducted as a planning office various planning reports in 1977 and 1984. There were 3 top concerns that were identified by the neighborhood then as well as today. They include neighborhood cleanup. They want to beautify their neighborhood. City code enforcement, to make sure that the city partners with them in establishing good ordinances, but also enforcing the ordinances that we have for the populace there. And also traffic and safety have been concerns with the Whittier neighborhood. The 2009 Whittier Evolution Summary, I feel, embraces neighborhood planning practices. These are practices that have been accepted by the Whittier neighborhood in terms of having current meetings, having staff available for resources and so forth, and just listening to what the neighborhood has to say and participating with them in their various projects that they have during the year. Also, the Whittier Evolution Summary establishes a neighborhood focus area in the sense that it provides neighborhood identification, it addresses land uses, parks and recreation, transportation, safety, and affordable housing. And it also has revitalization strategies as well. The Whittier Evolution Summary also records and highlights historical neighborhood landmarks, events, and activities within the neighborhood, too. And then within the document, you'll find various photographs of the various businesses, places of worship, the schools, and the parks that give that neighborhood character and identity for the Whittier residents. And the Whittier Evolution Summary also includes a Whittier Resident Association strategic plan. And that's probably one of the things that I'm most proud of, that I can say that this is a neighborhood strategic plan that they want to share with you as a city council. This is something that over various couple of years an evolution has occurred with this particular neighborhood to beautify their neighborhood and clean it up, to have consistent code enforcement, as well as provide safety of traffic and pedestrians within their neighborhood. The Whittier Resident Association strategic plan will include a Whittier Resident Association name change and nonprofit status. It establishes mission and a vision statement, and it identifies potential goals intermediate and long-term for implementation strategies and actions, and it addresses the neighborhood accomplishments thus far. And with that, again, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Gigi Ryder, who is the president of the Whittier Resident Association, that would like to visit with you about this neighborhood strategic plan that she and her board of directors have formulated this, and it's part of the appendix of this evolution summary that you'll find is Appendix H in the document. It will be available for questions after Gigi's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Hello, everybody. I'm Gigi Ryder. I'm the president of the Whittier Residents Association, and I'm going to do my best to give you some information here. We're going to start off with the name change. Originally, the name was Whittier Neighborhood Initiative, and us as a group, being that we wanted to go nonprofit, we went ahead and changed the name to Whittier Residents Association because it's the residents that we really want to stand up and take care of the neighborhood. We did establish a vision statement, and our mission statement is to create a safe environment for our children, to create a supportive environment for our elderly citizens, and to create a healthy environment for all. And for our vision statement, it was to set an example of how we want the neighborhood to be safe, beautified, and unified. Through innovative ideas and solutions, we will be in the neighborhood that people seek out and want to live in. That is one of our main goals. To identify potential neighborhood goals, implement strategies and actions. We have a few goals that, as we're starting off as a nonprofit, one of our first goals is to pay off the attorney fees for the legal work that we had done, to identify the boundaries within the Whittier area, to create a back gate to the falls, whether it be banners, flowers, or sculptures, to beautify the parks, being more flowers or trimming up the evergreen trees, and then, of course, to set up our bank account, which we're in the process of doing now. And the implemented strategies, part of that is to be doing the fundraising to pay the attorneys, which is going to be something new to all of us, but we're going to do our best to try to get that done. And getting mailers out to the residents is a publication, and that's another one of our goals that we have to reach, is to be able to get the information to our residents, and to schedule meetings quarterly so residents know the time, place, and what the meeting is covering. And with our publication, our first publication, what we'd like to do is we'd like to have all of our meetings set as a certain date throughout the year so that when people see an item that they want to discuss, that they can come to that meeting. And the action, contacting a bank to set up and know our qualifications and to apply for the 501c, and holding board meetings to get things lined up and talk strategies for fundraising. And as far as addressing neighborhood accomplishments, everybody knows that we've done the cleanup, and this was our third year this last year, and I can say for myself, living in the residence for 20 years, that I have seen an improvement in the area. It is so much more cleaner, and I've had other people come up to me and state that too, and I see that more of them are becoming homeowners because they're actually putting up fences and trimming down trees and trimming bushes and just making it look good, planting flowers, which are my favorite thing. So that is what I've seen for the accomplishments. And for identifying the strategic plan, our immediate goals are to finish the Articles of Incorporation, which we've already got that done since we scheduled this meeting, to open the bank account, which I hope to do next week, to create and approve a plan, and to create and approve a budget, to hold meetings with various agencies to support our daily operations, to incorporate nonprofit through the IRS, which we've done except for the 501c filing, write for funding. It says finish installing staff. As of right now, it's all volunteer unless Oprah sends us a check or something. Produce a publication, survey the residents, initiate community appeals drive, find places to hold meetings, and I don't think that's really going to be a problem because Eastside Lutheran Church has opened their doors so that we could have our meetings there, and start subcommittees, social groups, and event planning. And then with our long-term goals, to provide help to area residents and to create safety, to create a healthy environment, to increase the health of residents, create fun social activities, hold community gatherings that will use our park systems. We've already kind of played around with that idea. Create a hospitable place for good renters to stay, create a neighborhood that our growing children will want to buy and stay in the home there in the area. And activities of the association will fall into one or four of the categories, which would be the cleanup, the beautification, traffic or safety, public relations, or communications. Okay, now for our accomplishments. When we first 92 blocks that we had to deal with, so what we did is we went ahead and certain people that came to the first city council meeting, or first city meeting that they had at Eastside, a few of us stepped forward and we decided we need to divide the area and make zone leaders, so we did that. We've done our cleanup for 3 days, for 3 years, using businesses, volunteering staff and equipment, neighborhood residents, city equipment, and staff from the city and the city council members, which we're all grateful, and thank you again for all your support on that. The first year we did 53 tons of garbage to be removed from our neighborhood. The second was 80 tons, and the third we thought maybe would be less, but it actually was more than the first year, and it was 55 ton, and we probably figured that that's from the changeover of people moving in and out. As far as the neighborhood code enforcement, we worked with city employees to help the city code enforcement by doing the cleanup. At that time, residents do have the opportunity to contact a few of the council members that allowed us to put their names on our flyer, and we help them to haul it away. We know that there's still some that do not take advantage of this. It might be a language barrier. We have put Spanish on our last flyer to where if they need a translation, they could call a Spanish-speaking couple that we got on our board. And then after that, the final step for the code enforcement is if we can't help them, they're going to have to help themselves, and then they'll have to deal with the city code enforcement. So we're there to help them if they need it. As far as the neighborhood affordable housing, we would like to keep affordable housing for the young couples to raise their children, and to keep housing affordable for the elderly so that they don't have to move out, and to work with landlords on solutions, brainstorm and listen to try to come up with answers, because that seems to be a barrier that we're going to have to try to come together with the landlords to make sure that we're all playing the same game here. As far as the neighborhood traffic and safety, this has always been an issue for the young children to cross 6th Street, and we have looked into this. And some of the children aren't going up to the stoplight that's designated for that. And in speaking with some of the city officials, we're finding out that there's also traffic jams, which we found out are caused by the parents themselves. So what we would like to do as a group is to start a walking bus. I don't know if anybody have ever heard about that, but it's try to get kids to start walking back to school and hitting the healthy part of that and going a little bit green, keep the emissions of the cars staying at home. So that's one of our goals, is to do that. For the neighborhood conservation going green, we believe that we've done this through our cleanups, because we've done recycling of the tires. We put those all in one thing, and then the electronical recycling, we've done that, and the city has allowed us to do the branches to where they're chopped up into mulch, so that's recycling them. And we had somebody take the lawnmowers and the bikes to fix them, resell them, just so that they don't go into the landfill. And Jake from Millennium, he's been great every year. He has been there to have a big truck there, and we filled it every year that we've done the cleanup. Okay. For our future, the capture of ideas, seeking the solution, and living the results. What the neighborhood residents and business can do. We see this as an opportunity to meet with the business leaders in our group, in our area, and see what they would like us to bring into the neighborhood to help their businesses and also help our area. So this is an opportune time for us to work together as a group. To send out publications to businesses and residents, keeping people informed of what the happenings are in the neighborhood. And what can the city do? Well, if at all possible, we'd like you to budget some money to be given to our association, because we do have visions, but it's going to take money and hard work, but the result is great at the end. And we've seen that just by our volunteering that we've done. We would like the city to refer us to someone that could help us with our grant writing, because that's going to be something totally new for us. Just to continue to support us like you have been doing in the last 3 years. And I would just like to thank you for all of your support that you have given us. Thank you.
Gigi, let me first say thank you very much for everything that you do for the city and for your neighborhood, and congratulations to all those that are involved in the neighborhood. You truly have really made a huge impact, and we're all very proud of what you've been able to accomplish.
Thank you.
I assume the planning department is going to continue. You'll continue to work with those items on the grant writing, and
We're hoping.
yeah, that would be fantastic. Are there any questions that anybody has? Councilor Knudsen?
Just not a question, but just a comment. I'd like to echo all of Councilor Costello's comments, and then I'd also like to suggest that I think that maybe it would be possible for the Sioux Falls Area Foundation to help maybe with some grant writing too. I mean, they just have, they do that so much for on a regular basis, so hopefully they will be a nice resource for you also. But I'd just like to thank you for your enthusiasm and leadership, and also Jackie Swiden's too.
Yes.
Councilor Brown?
Gigi, what are the expenses you have so far with the legal fees for setting up the nonprofit? How much?
We're looking at about $1,000 for an attorney, and then for our mailing, it cost I think it was $269. But we were able to have Eastside print our things for us, and then I just bought the paper for making the flyers. That was $15. And then Lutheran Social Service helped us pay for it because they had gotten some Whittier money from a lady called High Pockets that used to live in our area for a long time. So actually, it was just volunteer hours pretty much, but that's going to be an expense that we're going to be having.
My hope would be that through planning or community development, we could help find the funds or the grants to do that. But I also want to make the council aware that it's not just the Whittier neighborhood that Gigi's been helping out with. Councilor Litz and I were in the Cathedral District for a neighborhood meeting there, and Gigi and her team have really set an example across the city, and they've been very generous in sharing what's worked and not worked in other neighborhoods. So thank you for leading the effort, because the city can only do so much. It really takes the neighborhood to get involved, and you guys have done a phenomenal job at that.
Well, I'm born and raised here, and I moved away, and I keep coming back, and I'm here to stay.
We want you to stay.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Councilor Staggers?
Yes, I have a number of questions. First of all, in regard to the streets in the neighborhood, how is the city doing as far as maintaining and improving your streets?
I think our streets are doing pretty good. You know, we have some construction in the area, but that's just going to be, other than that, I haven't had any complaints at all. I mean, I haven't hit any potholes.
Okay, well, good.
I mean, they're fixing them on cliffs, so that's good.
Also, you mentioned too about doing some activities in the parks and with flowers and things like that. Just checking about the park situation. Are the parks being maintained okay? And
I believe they're being maintained. I live across the street from Meldrum Park, and I am just amazed at the kids that are over there on the weekends. It's just full, and it's great to see that. Because before it used to be, you didn't see a lot of kids there because it was always just the basketball people, but now we have people playing soccer and basketball and on the playground equipment, so it's really nice.
And then finally, you mentioned code enforcement. I remember some time ago I was at a meeting for the Pettigrew Heights neighborhood, and at the meeting, the idea was brought up about codes, that maybe there should be a loosening or more flexibility when it comes to codes in the neighborhood, Pettigrew Heights. The idea being that sometimes if you want to do some improvements on your house, well, you want to do those improvements, you get permission from the city, then you also have to pay additional costs to bring your house up to code. And the idea is that creates a disincentive, and that maybe there should be more flexibility with the Pettigrew neighborhood. And I'm just wondering about Whittier neighborhood, about more flexibility with codes, building codes.
No, I don't think you should be flexible on that.
Okay.
That's just my personal opinion.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Any other Councilor Benega?
Gigi, I'm wondering, many years ago, I was to a Whittier neighborhood crime prevention watch discussion. Do you have a strong association in that neighborhood currently?
We have had some people that are interested in that, and that's why we've got to get all of our ducks in a row and have our dates planned so that those people can come forward.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Councilor Brown?
Gigi, it might be worth sharing what you talked about before with the code enforcement in your neighborhood and how the neighborhood is actually very active in that and how you've implemented that.
Yeah, we've worked with the city to get a code enforcement check sheet, and us as leaders in our zones, if we see something that we know shouldn't be there or brings the value of the properties down, we go ahead and we fill one of those out, and then we go ahead and hand it into the code enforcement.
Councilor Jameson?
I have a question for Russ. Russ, can you think of an equitable way to get the city involved in all these neighborhoods across the city with maybe a contribution to each neighborhood group like this, as well as Pettigrew Heights and others throughout the city? Is there an equitable plan that you've thought of or any ideas you might have?
There's, those are in the planning stages, but what we've talked about, not only in the Pettigrew Heights neighborhood and the Whittier neighborhoods and Norton Frolic and so forth, is to perhaps have some kind of a budget allowance for neighborhoods, particularly the core neighborhood areas, that could help them with their mailings. But more than that, each of those neighborhoods would be defined, and the neighborhood themselves would come up with a strategic plan, very similar to what Whittier has done, as to what are their immediate and long-term goals are for their particular neighborhood, but have buy-in from the residences. And then perhaps present those strategic plans, very similar to what Gigi has done this afternoon to you, as to how they want to implement their strategies to achieve those goals, and what it would take for that to happen in terms of volunteer efforts, perhaps requesting funds from the city, but perhaps if there's this pool, then the city could then review those requests. And it would be not only a grant, but it would be an incentive, I think, for neighborhoods to become more active and more involved in their particular neighborhood locations. I know we find that with the code enforcement aspects and the neighborhood watch. We have people within the various neighborhoods wanting that information. And I think the Whittier neighborhood has done a tremendous job with their website of getting the information out to them. They have their own website. They utilize the various church youth groups as well as scouting groups to get that information out door to door on a periodic basis. And so they've found creative ways to interact with the neighborhood as an administrative board, and to get their neighborhoods and the children involved to plan their neighborhood, but identify the goals as well. So I think with a neighborhood strategy that these various neighborhoods could come to you and say, this is what we want to do with our neighborhood, this is what we feel we'd like to see our neighborhood be, and have that visioning with them. And I commend Gigi and the Whittier Resident Association in helping, going out to other neighborhoods and being open and sharing the information, the do's and the don'ts, and the hard knocks that they've had to take as an association. But they seem to pick themselves up. There's a great deal of sense of pride in that neighborhood. And as a staff person for neighborhood services, I'm just very pleased and proud to be a part of that with them.
Russ, if you could put that all on paper, someday come back and present that idea to us. I think that's a great idea, and I think that's the framework that we need before we can start, maybe allocating funds. But I think there's some great ideas there. Come back and map it out for us.
Very good.
Councilor Brown?
Gigi, have you already got the nonprofit status? Has that legal work already been done?
That's already been done. We just have the 501c filing to do. But
Okay.
we already have the nonprofit in our articles of incorporation and our bylaws.
Question for Gail. Gail, every time you come to the podium, we create more work for you. But is that something that the city attorney's office could do in the future for neighborhoods? I don't know how much work is involved in that, but in forming neighborhood nonprofits.
Well, off the top of my head, it doesn't seem to be something that would lie within our jurisdictional framework, I guess, so to speak. But I think that would take a little more looking into to give you a definitive answer. It might be something fairly straightforward, though, we would be able to do.
Okay.
We can look into it.
Thank you.
Councilor Knudsen?
Gigi, one thing I forgot to ask is for those people that are watching this discussion this afternoon on Channel 16, I was wondering if there would be a work phone number or or association phone number that you could give folks if now that you guys have, now that the Whittier neighborhood has, residents have established a 501c status, that if they are interested, you know, like maybe someone from who attends a church in that neighborhood, lives in that neighborhood, or has a business in that neighborhood, or some other emotional tie to that neighborhood, or is just a philanthropist in general, if they would like to send a check to the great cause, would there be a phone number where they could call to get more information?
They can actually call me if they would like. My number's 212-9963, or they can also go to our website, and it's www.mywhittierneighbor.com, and they'll be able to put something into that to where April will be able to reply back to them.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilor Staggers?
Yes, this question is for Gigi or Russ.
Okay.
Does anybody know the amount of improvements in terms of costs for 2008? How much money was spent in the Whittier area for improving homes
do
and
not know.
businesses and things like that?
Do not have that information in the dollar figure, but we do have the information in the evolution summary as terms of that are projects that were associated with the capital improvements plan for the street improvements, particularly along 6th Street and so forth, and the park improvements, but I don't have that specific dollar at this time.
Is that fairly easy to find since it's such a defined area?
Through this capital improvements program, yes, it would be.
No, but I mean, you know, we have people getting building permits and things like that to improve their homes, and is that information you could get rather easily? Or?
Yeah, that's public information that we could try to get for the council, yes.
That'd be great if you could.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, I'd just like to take the time to recognize Russ Sorensen and Erica Beck. I know you both have been very instrumental as well, and we thank you for your efforts as well. Okay. Next item on the agenda is our executive session, but we are not going to have an executive session today. Anything else before we adjourn as far as open discussion items on the council? Seeing none, we are adjourned. We have a joint city-county meeting at 5 o'clock, so stay tuned. Thank you.